forget this obvious fact. When the people who want the potato but don't want to do the work to create the potato are allowed to steal from the people who did create the potato, well then eventually you're just going to incentivize society where nobody wants.
The person who makes the potato is only allowed to produce the potato and harvest it and have access to it and be able to sell it at a marketplace because there is cops, there is laws to prevent people from stealing it. The only reason why you're able to produce anything, have factories, have anything like that is because there's laws, police, and law enforcement to prevent people from stealing it. So, your argument is really just invalid because it does need the state to have this work. You're effectively just shielded by corporate protection. You have no actual validity in terms of, like, if there was an anarchy, right, there was no laws, you just get your shit stolen. Right? So, in both cases, this is the state entirely intervening and controlling the situation in a way that benefits an individual person. You're just specifically upset that it's a situation that benefits poor people. The welfare programs are designed to help poor people by allocating wealth from people who earn more money. And the people who earn more money are only earning more money via, typically familial connections, those sort of things, job experience, which they get via familial connections, inherited businesses, trust funds, those sort of things. So all that's really happening is we're taking, again, if we didn't have laws or protections for rich people, they'd get all their shit stolen. Every single ounce of wealth would be stolen. So what's really happening here is the government is stepping in, saying, we're not going to allow you to steal from rich people. They're allowed to keep $8 billion for themselves. Poor people, you're not allowed to have any. And this situation of billionaires, of monopolies, only exists because of governmental protections, because of governmental supervision. In a state of anarchy, where there is no government, there is no laws to protect you, you do not get a billion-dollar company. You get looted by people who need the materials more. That's what happens. You are portraying the people who steal the potato as lawless people who are just benefiting from government protection. These are people who would run around and steal if they could, which they would, probably. But these people only have their... It's a hypocritical thing, because he's saying these people only get EBT because the government is stealing from people. But the government is stealing from people via protecting that land, via protecting that property, preventing other people from living there, preventing other people from buying it, preventing other people from housing there. Like, this whole thing is just a entirely governmental control, top down to top up, on both sides. So it's really kind of funny for him to portray it like it's entirely in one direction, like it's the government stealing the potato from one guy, rather than it being a collective effort of a large sum of people who are getting some small amount taken out from via tax and given to people who have less money. Again, this whole argument's stupid because it doesn't even make sense.
Wants to make potatoes, period. Because that's really what makes the difference of an entitlement. The problem with entitlements and privileges is that they require the labor of somebody else in order to give you what you want. And that's just another reason why if some...
Without the labor of cops and law enforcement and police, you would have no potato farm. You wouldn't have a 80-acre farm. You would have housing that people would build and conquer and take over. You wouldn't have that. The only reason it exists is the same reason EBT exists, is governmental control. There is no difference between these two things. You are selectively choosing when the government is allowed to have complete totality control and influence over a scenario. It is not okay when the government says, we need money to help poor people, let's give a sum of money from rich people back into the system and to give as to poor people so they can afford to eat, but it is okay for rich people to have police protection as to prevent their land from getting stolen or conquered. That's okay. It's okay for them to entirely close off a piece of land from housing, from further building of a community. It's fine to pretty much have a 50 to 60 acre land area that could be used for housing, that is just a vacant land owned by a rich person. The only reason that isn't used for housing, only reason these large apartment complexes, these large housing complexes with hundreds of houses are empty is because real estate companies are allowed to buy them out en masse, right? And the reason why they aren't just being lived in or taken by people who are homeless is because the cops will arrest them. These systems, these conditions we have in place right now only exist because of governmental control. The welfare programs take a lot less resources. You don't need a law enforcement officer to prevent squatting. There is much less force involved in removing squatters. There's much less force involved in taxation as opposed to removing squatters. One takes a physical threat of violence directly via removing somebody. Actually, it's not even a physical threat, it's physical force. It takes a lot more physical force as to remove somebody from a house, an empty house that nobody lives in. It takes a lot more force as to do that, as compared to just taxation, which they do for foreign wars like Israel and Ukraine, which you're probably fine with. Wars that we're not even officially involved in, but somehow that's okay, but not helping native-born U.S. citizens. Somehow that's not okay. I cannot stand the people against welfare. They are the most stupidest people because they are fine with literal welfare for people overseas, but not people who live in this country. Crazy that.